Hey, how are you? Hope you're well. Hope things are doing good at your side, your family. This week I learned something that was absolutely transformative and I wanted to share it with you. And I hope that you can resonate with it the way it resonated with me. There's a great discourse called The Discourse of Echaltzu. It was authored over 120 years ago by one of the great Rebbes, Rabbi Shalom Dovber of Lubavitch. And in it, it's a long essay with tremendous amount of insights, but the fundamental point is unity. And in chapter 10, which I studied this week, I'm like each week I study one chapter and I try to delve into it. I even give some shiurim on it. This week's chapter, the stuff he was saying absolutely blew my mind, and I think it will blow your mind as well. In a way, you would think that the stuff he says is more psychology books, but he's coming from an absolute Chassidic Torah perspective. And it gave me an entirely different appreciation for things that I always knew were important, but never really understood why. Specifically, friendships. And he talks about how friendships help when you study, you bounce your ideas off somebody else and you get clarity. But then he talks about in your own character traits, how having a friend doesn't only make you smarter, it makes you a better person. And he gives three reasons. And that's what I want to delve in. The three reasons why you and I need good friends. Number one, he says like this: I love myself. You love yourself. That's the way it is. Imagine we had to confront everything about us, all our weaknesses, we would feel down. That's why, unfortunately, people who don't have a good self-image, who have low self-esteem, often it's based on reality. Yeah, I don't have this talent, I don't have this talent, I have this weakness, I have that weakness. If we saw ourselves for who we are and all our imperfections, it's a bit overwhelming. So what did Hashem do? Hashem made us love ourselves, and love is blind. In the words, Al kol psha'im techasa ava, that's what one of the great King Solomon says, that love covers over any mistake, any sin. And it covers over certain character traits. For example, how am I supposed to know how I come across to you? Am I coming across sweet or harsh? When I shake your hand, do I come across interested or not? So throughout the years, I've had many people that will walk over to me and give me honest feedback. Rabbi, when you engage, this is the way you come across. But how in the world was I supposed to know that? The only way I know how I'm coming across is by getting honest feedback. So the first benefit is to actually have people serve as mirrors to my imperfections. Now, certain imperfections, if I live with them, big deal. In other words, it's not interfering with anybody. It's my own little, idiosyncrasy. Each and every one of us has idiosyncrasies, and we're entitled to it, human beings. However, there's certain character traits that can be fixed, and we would want to fix if we knew that we're coming across. Rabbi, you come across aggressive. You don't hang up the phone like a mensch. Whatever it is, each and every one with their own their own individual stuff. But when you have a mirror to your issues, then you are guaranteed to be able to acknowledge them and work on them. So number one, the best and most incredible thing about having a friend is they serve as a mirror to your faults. And in the words of the Hayom Yom, one of the great collections of sayings in Judaism, authored by the Rebbe before he was Rebbe in the 1940s, he says, love criticism, because that is what's going to take you to your ultimate potential. That's what's going to take you to the ultimate height of your capacity. So, number one, love criticism and have a friend because they will give you constructive criticism. Then there's another thing. Number two, when I talk it out, when I have a friend to talk over my issues, even though while I'm talking it's extremely painful, the Talmud tells us, Daga belev ish yisichena, that when a person has a worry, they should talk about it, la'acherim, according to one opinion in the Talmud. According to one opinion in the Talmud, distract yourself, but the other opinion is talk about it. And the truth is they're both true. Sometimes you have to distract yourself from your worries, but you can't distract yourself forever. At other times, you have to release it. And the way to release it is to talk about it. And when you have a good friend who you could be honest about, not only your tsaros, but your own character traits and the weaknesses and the fact that your struggles, then you have somebody that even though while you talk, the pain is so deep, but because you spoke about it and brought it out and confessed, in the words of the Torah, vidui dvarim, you articulated your issue, it makes it easier to overcome. In other words, let's say I have a darkness, I have a challenge, whatever it is. This is not Sunday and I don't do confession. But let's say I have a weakness. And I keep it to myself. And I don't verbalize the issue, my struggle. Not necessarily am I then appreciating the harshness of it. But let's say, for argument's sake, I have a struggle with alcohol, which thank God I don't. And I have to talk about it and actually sit down across a friend and say, you know what, Barry? I have this sickness. I have this addiction. I have this pull towards alcohol. I have this unhealthy relationship with alcohol. The moment I talk about it, in my own mind, it becomes clearer, the foolhardiness of my mistake. I'm not saying it's easy to get over addiction. I'm talking about not medical addiction, but weaknesses, things that unhealthy patterns that we fall into. And sometimes just talking about it forces me to sit there saying, really? That's what I've become? Like sometimes if we don't articulate, things don't become crystal clear. And I know this from my own life because I talk for a living. And one of the incredible gifts of that is when you talk and you're forced to verbalize and try to articulate in a coherent way that people could understand what you're saying, you articulate it for yourself. Because as long as I don't have to articulate it for you, I could get away saying, yeah, I understood that. You know, I opened the Discourse, I understood it, I understood the page of Talmud, I could get away with it. But suddenly when I have to teach the page of Talmud, suddenly when I have to share with you what's going on, that's much more painful. That's very, very painful. But it's an incredibly articulate experience. It forces me to actually create coherence in my thought. So the second benefit, beyond the fact that they could point out a fault, is that I can discuss then my faults with them, bring it out, and that will give me the strength and the will to get out of that nonsense. Instead of saying gross, unless you talk to yourself, and that's nothing wrong, but it's when you talk to somebody else, usually you'll even have to be more coherent than when you talk to yourself. And finally, the third thing, a good friend will give you advice how to get out of the mess. So they tell you that you're in a mess. They help you articulate the mess. And third of all, they can give you advice to get out of a mess. I have to say, in my own life, you know, as a rabbi, often you're called upon to give advice. And yet the same advice that you could give to others, it's very hard to give to yourself. I love myself. That's the way it is. I need a friend to be able to give me that advice. Even though if someone would walk over to me and say the exact same issue that I have, I would be able to have clarity, articulation, because I'm objective about their issue. In my own issues, I'm subjective. And therefore, there is no person in this world who's wise enough to not need help, to not need to bounce off somebody else. God created us with a self-love, and that forces us to have to reach out to good friends. So to point out your issues, to then help you articulate them, and to then give you solutions for them. That's what friends are for. That's obviously, friends could do a lot more, but the Rebbe Rashab focuses on these specific areas, and that a person could only achieve their true height with these kind of friends. So I think there's one very strong point that comes out of here, and that is that a big point of being a friend is not only to sit there complimenting you, it's to actually help you grow. There's social friends, and social friends are just there to chill, and what's up, and how's life, and ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, and how's your family. But then there's deep friends. And a deep friend is somebody who sits across you when you need it, not every other day, because then they're not a real friend. When you need it, and they say, listen, boy, listen, my dear friend, we're going to solve this issue, okay? You're spiraling out of control. This issue is getting in your way. We need to discuss it. We need to solve it. We need to get to the bottom of it. And only once we achieve that level of friendship, that we have honest mirrors and good people around us who will help us achieve our potential, do we begin the incredible journey of self-actualization. So l'chaim to friendships. I've always felt that teenagers and youth overestimate the importance of friendships. They'll follow around their friends wherever they go, like absolute, sheep. But adults underestimate the power of friendships. And maybe men more than women. We underestimate the power of a good friendship. You need friends. I don't care how high your IQ is, or how high my IQ I like to believe is, or how wise we think we are. You need somebody outside your own head to be able to be a mirror and to look at you and sit there saying, you know what? It's time to grow up. And if they're a good friend, then that could be the biggest favor they'll ever do for you. Shabbat Shalom. And I wish us all, that we should all acquire for ourselves the best of friends. Because truly, walking through life with a good friend is a gift that cannot be overstated.